Good evening everyone. Welcome to Pinoy Podcast. Ang table topic po natin ngayon is about buying a property in the Philippines as a form of investments. Madami nagtatanong po sa atin being a realtor sa Canada na if it's really worth it for you to buy a property in the Philippines as a form of investment compared dito sa Canada. I just happen to have an experience of selling properties in the Philippines because at one point I helped one of the major developers in the Philippines to market their projects dito sa Canada, and I sold a lot of condominium project, a high-end condominium project in the Philippines, and that's why I could talk to you guys about my experience and what really goes on in the background. That is something that most of the sales people in the Philippines is not going to tell you, right? So let's talk about this, the pros and cons about buying properties in the Philippines from the perspective of if you're Canadian who's residing sa Canada. Whenever somebody asks me this type of question, the very first that I would ask them is that, ano po ba yung purpose nyo sa pagbili nyo ng property? Is it for personal use or is it for investments? Because these are two different things. When you're buying a property for personal, it is not considered to be an asset. It is a liability, right? It only becomes an asset if you're using it for the purpose of investments, where the property, where you're making money from the property and it's paying for it, right? In real estate, there are four ways that you could make money in real estate, and that is your appreciation, your forced appreciation, your principal recapture, and your cash flow. And there's a fifth one called private lending, where you lend your own money, and that's how you make money from it, right? From lending your own money. So whenever somebody's buying a property in the Philippines, they're actually buying it for a personal use or a personal reason, and a majority of people that are buying this type of a property are actually people that is temporary dito sa Canada, which is your typical OFW or somebody that have a plan to exit sa Canada and to move back in the Philippines in the future. So these are the a candidate or the people that are buying this type of a property, right? Now, for investors, what is the cons of buying an investment properties in the Philippines? So here's the disadvantages of buying investment properties in the Philippines. Number one, it is easy to acquire it, but it is hard to exit. And the reason for this is because of the supply and demand, right? A majority of people buying a property in the Philippines are actually coming from overseas, from North America, Asia, Middle East, Europe. Also, in the Philippines, it is hard to get a concrete comparables for resale. Or if you ever get one, it will be coming from the developers, which is most likely going to be skewed. Compared to North America, we have an MLS system where we can keep track of comparables in a real time. Also, supply and demand. What really moves the market is actually the supply and demand. There are more supplies of properties in the Philippines, but only a small percentage of them, of local Filipinos, are actually buying them, especially the high-end projects, because it is considered to be a luxury compared to Canada, where there are more people migrating to Canada from the Philippines or any other parts of the world. That is why our real estate moves a little bit more faster compared to other parts of the world. It's because of a migration. Second thing is that vacancy rate. When you buy a property in the Philippines, especially in the bigger development where there are more than one towers being built at any given time, you have to understand that a majority of people buying it are coming from overseas that are doing the same thing as what you are doing. I know for the fact that that developers do promise buyers to manage the property for them, but the reality is that if there's a lot of unit being purchased by people from overseas like you and me. What are the chances of your unit being rented? What do you think that the chances that your unit will be rented first? Or who is to say that your property will be the first priority to be rented, right? Another thing that you guys have to think about, from my experience, is your exchange rate. When I was selling properties in the Philippines, um, from here sa Canada, here's what happened, right? When I was selling a property from here sa Canada, and when you remit your monthly funds, from Canadian to peso, you have to go through an exchange remittance company, just like what you do when you're remitting money to the Philippines, right? Pag nagpapadala kayo ng pera from, let's just say, from Toronto sa Pilipinas. Now, most of the time, the developers have their own remittance company, which is a subsidiary of a developers, right? Now, I want you to imagine if the developers have their own remittance company, or if they run their own remittance company. Who is to say that they could not make up their own exchange rate, right? Because my experience when I was selling a property in the Philippines is that there was a remittance company that is affiliated to the developers from UK. So whenever I was sending funds from Toronto to the Philippines, it goes from one hub and second hub. So it is very hard to keep track of the exchange rate. So don't be surprised at the end of the closing time that you have to pay more compared to what you anticipate when you sign the contract to sell, because you don't know what the exchange rate is going to be, or if the exchange rate that you paid was being set by the developers themselves, right? Another thing that you guys have to think about is your boots on the ground. If you ever want to manage your own unit or your own property, usually what happens is that we appoint our relatives in the Philippines, and that is the last person to hire to manage your property, because what ended up happening is that when the family members gets involved, it will be hard to treat it like a business. The last thing that you don't want is to turn an investment property into a personal use that other people will be benefiting from them. Okay. Another disadvantage of buying a property in the Philippines for the use of investment is, in the Philippines you could not do a BRRRR strategies that what we compared to what we do here sa Canada. So you basically, what happens is you're financing it for, let's just say, for 3 to 5 years term, and you are using your own HELOC, your home equity line of credit, or your line of credit, personal line of credit, to close the deal on closing. But the challenge is that in the Philippines, you could not do a BRRRR strategies just like what we do here in North America, where you can refinance it. Because from what I can recall it, you can only acquire a mortgage in the Philippines up to 50 years old. And once you pass the 50 years old, it is going to be very hard for you to acquire a mortgage compared to Canada, where you can literally buy a property using other people's money or OPM money, and sometimes buying it for no money down, using a BRRRR strategies where you raise funds and refinance it and take your money out. So your money in the Philippines, if you buy it in the Philippines, your money in the Philippines is going to get stuck there until you're able to unload it. So your money is just basically sleeping in the Philippines and not doing anything. So in summary, if your intention is to buy it for personal use and you are going back to the Philippines in the future, then yes, it probably makes sense for you to buy something there, because you are going to use it for your own personal use in the future and you're going to go back there. But if you're buying it for the sole purpose of investment, and you're a Canadian, I would rather buy a property here in Canada, because number one, it appreciates faster. Number two, I can leverage it. And number three, I can always repeat it and rinse it.